you out. Okay. All right. So let's talk about fractional reserve banking. Okay. So the financial system captures activities involving finance in the economy. Okay. Finance in the economy, all those things are captured. Yeah. Okay. Just a second. I'm trying to see if I can allow one of you to do the recording. Let me see. All right. So the financial system captures all activities involving finance in the economy. Okay. So it is responsible. You see, the thing about the financial system is that it allows all different markets to do what? Don't forget, when we're talking about money, we talked about a lot of things. Medium of a unit of account. All right. So if goods cannot be exchanged directly, they can be converted. The monetary form can be obtained, and definitely we can then, if whatever the case be, if there is a good and you have its monetary equivalent, you can compare the monetary equivalent of those different goods. Okay. All right. So that's the important role that the financial sector plays. Okay. It links economic agents within the economy, whether households, firms, governments. All right. It links all those people. So financial systems are made up of all the financial intermediaries and the financial markets. Okay. That's what the financial system is made up of. Okay. So financial markets are simply, so when we say financial market, just like we have a goods market, right? In the goods market, what is sold there is good. In the financial market, what is sold there is what? Financial instruments. Okay, what is sold there is financial instruments, which includes stocks, bonds,
recording stopped.
Bonds, stocks, currencies, and all that. Okay, and all that. All right. So that is what is basically traded on the financial market. All right. So financial markets includes the bonds market, the stock market, all right, the foreign exchange markets, and all that. Okay, the foreign exchange market and all that. Okay. All right. I had recording stopped, so I'm trying to find out what's going on. All right. So now let's go on. Financial intermediaries are the institutions that provides these financial services. Okay. So we have a financial market, and the institutions that provide the financial services and offer different financial products are the financial intermediaries. Okay, are the financial intermediaries. So the most important financial institutions in the country currently, the commercial bank, the investment bank, the central bank, and all those things. Okay. Other types include the mutual funds, the mortgage buyers, derivative firms, and all those sort of things. Okay, so those are things that you can easily do. And then, what role does the financial system play? They aid in the mobilization and allocation of resources. They also helps to manage risk. All right. So instead of keeping your cash on you somewhere, you can decide to go and use it to buy a financial instrument. In that case, what you are doing is you are transferring the risk from yourself to the financial institution. Okay, the financial institution, and you get a return at the end. Okay, they also act as what? A clearing house. Okay, they act as a clearing house, and then the transfer of resources across space and time. Okay, you can be here, send resources, financial resources elsewhere, and that kind of thing. So basically, that's the role of the financial system. The financial system operates in a financial market, and the institutions that deal with these things are what? The financial intermediaries. Okay, are the financial intermediaries. Okay. A couple of people have raised their hand. Yes, let me hear you. I say yeah.
What does it mean when you say they act as clearing houses?
So I mean, funds, excess funds. Okay, so more or less, if excess funds is locked up somewhere, I mean, these financial institutions are the same people who can work things out and get all those things cleared up. Okay, that's what we mean by they act as clearing houses. Okay.
Okay.
And then Ishmael.
Can you give me one or two ways in which they are going to manage the
come
risk?
Oh, so if you are if you keep your money on you, armed robbers can come pick it up, right? So now instead of managing that risk at home, I can decide to go drop the money and use it to buy a financial instrument. In that case, the risk is no longer on you of losing the money, but now it's on the bank. They are supposed to keep it and make a return on it and give it to you. Is that clear?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Now let's come to something very, very important about the financial system. Okay, something very, very, very important about the financial system, okay, which is called deposit creation. Okay, so basically, the central bank determines the total money supply in an economy. That's basically what the central bank does. Okay, they print the money, both literally and figuratively. Okay, they print the money both literally and then figuratively. Okay, all right. And then commercial banks are not, okay, they are also financial intermediaries, but they are not permitted to do what? To print money. But that is where the deposit creation becomes important. They contribute to the supply of money in the economy through their deposit creation processes. All right? And we will show you in a few minutes how that happens, okay? So it is only the central bank that is mandated by law, all right? It's only the central bank that is mandated by law to do what? To print money. But we'll see that commercial banks can contribute to the money supply and money creation process through their deposit creation activities. All right, so that's where the word figuratively comes in. All right, figuratively comes in. Okay, all right, so so commercial banks receive deposit from customers, and it is out of this, so that's why it is called deposit creation. They receive deposit from customers, and it is out of these deposits that they are able to create money. Okay, by making loans to their clients and that kind of thing. All right. Okay, we will describe the process very soon. But before we go there, I mean, you guys know this thing more than I do. All right, the balance sheet of a typical financial institution, it has two sides. Okay, so if we take a typical commercial bank, there are two sides of the balance sheets. There's the asset side, and then there's the liability side. So asset side will include things like the vaults, the loans, the securities, reserves with central bank investments. That constitutes the assets of a particular commercial bank. And then the liabilities are the demand deposits, the savings account, and the time deposits. The reason why we are bringing this asset and liability thing is to show you how the commercial banks, through their deposit taking activities, okay, the deposits they take and the loans that they make, how they can use that to affect the supply of money in an economy. Okay, so here, this is how typically a very simple balance sheet of a commercial bank will look like. Okay, this is how a very simple balance sheet of the economy can look like. Okay, all right. Okay, so on the asset side, we have the reserves, the loans, and the investments. Okay, and then on the deposit and the liability side, we have the deposits and that kind of thing. The most important thing is that since it's a balance sheet, assets must be equal to what? Liabilities.
Recording in progress.
Whatever form your assets are in, okay, whatever form your assets are in, it should balance out with what? With your liability. So for this specific case, what we've seen is that the commercial bank is keeping 200 cedis as reserves and using 800 to make loans. So the total equals what? 1,000 Ghana cedis. And it is coming, the reserves and the loans they are making is coming from some deposits that they've taken from banks, okay? And that deposit is from individuals, not banks, individuals, okay? Deposits that they've taken from individuals, and that is just equal to 1,000. So out of that 1,000, they are supposed to keep a certain reserve of 200 and make loan and investment worth 800, okay? All right. All right. Okay. So now let's consider the case of a new bank whose first client makes 100 cedis deposit. Okay, let's consider a case of a new bank whose client makes 100 cedis deposit. Okay, so there's this thing called the required reserve ratio. Okay, this required reserve ratio is simply the fraction of deposits that commercial banks are required to keep at the central bank as what? Their reserves. Okay, they're supposed to keep this at the central bank as their reserves. Okay, so let me try and mute everybody. All right, so they're supposed to keep this reserve. So the reserve required ratio is how the fraction that they are supposed to keep as their reserve. So if we assume a 10% reserved required ratio, a 10% reserved required ratio, all right? So 10% out of 100 is what? Is 10 Ghana cedis, all right? It's 10 Ghana cedis. So with the 10% reserve required ratio, the bank is required to hold 10 cedis as reserves. Okay, it's required to hold 10 cedis as reserves. Since reserves traditionally pay no interest, the bank has no incentive. The bank has some incentive. Okay, it has an incentive to use the excess reserves of 90 cedis. He has an incentive to use those as what? As loans. Okay, he has an incentive to use those as loans. Okay, all right. So we assume that you make a loan of 90 Ghana cedis to another client by issuing what? A check. All right. So this is typically how the balance sheet of Bank One will look like. Don't forget, Bank One took a deposit from a client. Okay, Bank One took a deposit from a client, and it is recorded as one of their liabilities. Okay. Now, what they are doing is that by law, they are supposed to keep a certain fraction. That is the reserve required ratio, and it is assumed to be 10%. So 10% of the 100 is 10 cedis. What is left? And we are saying that that reserve does not earn any interest. So for them to be able to make some money, what they do is they use the excess reserve. They use it as a loan. Okay, they give it out as a loan, and it is recorded on their assets, the asset side of their balance sheet. Okay, so still the balance sheet is balanced. Okay, 100 in terms of assets, 100 in terms of what? Of liabilities. Okay, now let's look at what happens. They are going to make a loan of 90 Ghana cedis. Assuming this loan is given to somebody who goes to deposit it in another bank. All right, so now let's go to Bank Two. Okay, don't forget, he's taking this 90 Ghana cedis and he's going to use it. Yes, Matilda. Matilda, you can unmute.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, please, so does it mean that if someone makes a deposit of 100 cedis, the person will get 90 cedis when he wants to withdraw it?
Where are you getting the 20 cedis from?
No, sir, with the table, that's what I'm asking. If someone makes a deposit of 100 cedis and he wants to withdraw it back, will the person get 90 cedis, or the person will be giving back his 100 cedis?
No. So we are saying that somebody has deposited 100 cedis. Okay. He has deposited 100 cedis. By law, the commercial bank is required to keep 10% of that 100 cedis. Okay. Well, if the person wants to come back immediately, you can have something. That's the idea. But you're supposed to keep some 10%. That 10% you've kept doesn't come with any interest, doesn't come with anything. But the bank is, okay, so the bank can decide to use the excess reserve, okay, that he can try and make some money from the excess reserve that he has in hand, okay, the excess reserve that he has in hand. And that excess reserve is 90 cedis. And we are saying that he could make money from that excess reserve by giving it out as what? As a loan. Okay, by giving it out as what? As a loan. This is typically what happens in a basic commercial bank, all right? But we are trying to use it to show how the commercial banks can contribute in the money creation process. Okay, so don't worry so much about the dynamics of if he says he wants to go and get it now, how much, all right? Don't be worried about that. But now look at what happens. Assuming commercial bank one, assuming commercial bank one keeps the, assuming commercial bank one gives the 90 cedis out as loan, assuming commercial bank gives the 90 cedis as loans and it goes to another bank, it is going to that other bank in the form of what? A deposit, which will be on their which will be part of their liabilities. And they are also required to keep what? 10%. So that's what you see on the next slide. The next slide that you see here is the 90 that the first commercial bank has given out as a loan. Somebody has gone to take that loan and deposited the money in commercial bank too, all right? So it is there as what? So it's also required to keep a certain 10%. So that is 9 cedis. And they also are interested in making money. So the excess reserve they have from the 90 Ghana cedis is what? 81. And that 81 Ghana cedis is used as loans to another person. Okay, it is given out as a loan to another person. Okay, and it continues like that, assuming there's a commercial bank 3. Okay, assuming there is a commercial bank 3. Okay, assuming there is a commercial bank 3, that also takes the 81. It will continue like that. Okay, it will keep going and going and going. All right. So at this point, the total amount of additional demand deposit created out of the initial 100 cedis is 283. Okay, 890 from the first commercial bank, 81 from the second one, 72.9 from the third one, and it continues like that. Okay, and the most important thing is that there is a formula that can help us to tell us what will be the total amount of money that will be made from that particular. So David, I will be with you shortly. There's a formula that will tell us how. Okay, there's a formula that will help us to tell how much money will be made through the deposit creation process out of the 100 cedis. Okay, and that is where we use this thing called the money multiplier. All right. So the whole idea to go through this deposit creation thing is to simply show you the dynamics behind this thing called the money multiplier. So out of the 100 cedis that was given initially, we are saying that the total money, if the banks follow their deposit creation, their deposit creation processes, the total money that they will make is supposed to be what? 1,000 Ghana cedis. We can simply rely on the money multiplier to tell indeed how much money can be made from a certain initial deposit. All right. So the money multiplier is nothing but the ratio of change in money created divided by the change in what? Reserves. And it is simple. It is just 1 divided by what? The required reserved ratio. It is just 1 divided by what? The required reserve ratio. So the required reserve ratio was what? It was 10%, 0.1. So let's calculate the multiplier now, the money supply multiplier now. It is simply 1 divided by what? 0.1, which is equal to what? It is equal to 10. So in our example, the money supply multiplier is 10, which means that the total amount of additional loans that can be created out of any new deposit is 10 multiplied by what? The initial deposit. Don't forget, we started with an example of what? 100. So if we multiply 10 by the 100, what you get is what? 1,000, which is just equal to what? The total amount of money that we see here. Okay? The total amount of money that we see here. So for you to be able to know how much money will be made out of the deposit creation process, all you need to do is to calculate the money multiplier. You don't need to take these balance sheets and be taking them one after the other. All right. All you need to do is to know what the money multiplier is. And you know what the money multiplier is. If you multiply the money multiplier by the initial amount that was deposited, okay, by the initial amount that was deposited, you get to know how the total amount of money that will be made out of the deposit creation process, okay? And that is what So our example make many simplifying assumptions. Okay, before we come to the many simplifying assumptions, okay. So this is it. This is a very good example to show you how the deposit creation process goes. So if you want to know the total amount of money that will be made out of the deposit creation process, all you need to do is to multiply the multiplier by the initial deposit that was made. All right, is it clear? Is it clear? You can unmute yourselves and speak.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes.
good. But we made Sewa. Okay, Sewa, I will go over again once more for you to know. So Sewa, what we are saying is simple. If you want to know how much money will be made, all right, okay, just 1 divided by the multiplier. 1 divided by the required reserve ratio, it will give you the money multiplier. Multiply, maybe, let me see if there's a question at the later end of
Recording stopped.
This exercise. Maybe that should help.
Recording in progress.
Maybe that should help. David, do you have a question?
Sir, please, are you holding all things constant?
Yeah, that's where we are coming to. That we made some very simplifying assumptions. Okay, it is assumed that all money is kept within the banking system, and then in practice,
what if the person takes the money and
exactly, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, the person could keep some money as cash out of the banking system, and banks cannot make loans out of such things. All right, it is not always the case that the bank will only keep a required reserve ratio. The bank can have other interests and decide to keep some of the money and not use the excess reserve, all of the excess reserve. Exactly. So we made some very simplistic assumptions. All right. We made some very, very simplistic assumptions. Okay. All right. Who else had the hand up? I saw somebody's hand up. So it was based on a very, very simple assumption. Yeah. Okay. I hope you can all hear me. I mean, I think Michael Tufo says my voice is low. It's not low, right? Tufo, can you hear me?
Sir, please, I hardly hear it. It's very low.
Wow. Is it the case for all others or it's fine?
It's fine. Sir, please, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
I think to force
network.
Maybe it is network.
Yeah, you should fix it.
Hey.
Okay, so let's move on. All right, let's move on. Okay. So now let's come and talk about central banks and monetary policy. Okay. Let's talk about central banks and monetary policy. Okay. Now, what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is about altering the supply of money in the economy, okay, to alter or to influence economic activities. That's all monetary policy is about, okay? That's all monetary policy is about. It's about altering the money supply to influence certain economic activities. That's all monetary policy is about. And this monetary policy is done by an institution called the central bank. Okay, don't forget they are the sole institution that is allowed to do what? To print money. Okay, yes, Teresa, what's your question? So well, I've seen your. I will try and recap at the end.
Recording
okay?
Stopped.
Yes, Teresa.
Recording in progress.
Yes.
Sir, for me.
Come again.
Sir, please, I didn't get. Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir.
Yes.
Please, I didn't get the last slide. Into the last slides. I didn't hear you. My network was breaking.
Okay. All right. So I'm saying that if we want to know how much money will be created, okay, how much money. So that's what Sewa was also asking, that if we want to know how much money was created by commercial banks, okay, by commercial banks, all we need to do is to obtain the money supply multiplier. And the money supply multiplier is what? 1 divided by what? The required reserve ratio. That will give you the money multiplier. So if there is an initial deposit of 100 cedis, the total money that will be created out of the 100 cedis is the multiplier multiplied by the initial deposit. So in our case, we got a multiplier of 10 because the required reserve ratio was what? 10%, 0.1. So 1 divided by 0.1 will give us the 10. So if we want to know how much the total amount of money that will be created from the initial deposit of 100, we multiply the money multiplier by the initial deposit of 100. So we have 100 multiplied by 10, and it is equal to what? 1,000. So out of the initial 100 cedis that was deposited to the commercial bank, the commercial banks have figuratively made 900 cedis more. That is why we got a total of what? Of 1,000. All right, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So why is it clear now? All right, good. So why does he want to speak? Okay, so Moses, that is not the work of commercial banks. Commercial banks, the only person who can either make money or print money or deface any money is the central bank. Okay, so even if the commercial bank collects it on the IPF, it is all sent to the central bank for it to be properly dealt with. Okay, all right, for it to be properly dealt with. Okay, so now let's go to monetary policy. Monetary policy is all about how do we increase the supply of money in the economy to influence, either increase or decrease, to influence the level of economic activity. And it is done by this institution called the central bank. So in Ghana, there's this committee called the Monetary Policy Committee of Ghana. They decide, and it is because of the monetary policy regime that we are practicing. We are practicing inflation targeting. So there's something called the policy rate. Okay, there's something called the policy rate. And this Monetary Policy Committee, they sit down and discuss. They do all sort of surveys to find out whether we should increase the policy rate or do what? To decrease the policy rate. Okay, so there's this committee called the Monetary Policy Committee. They basically do all those stuff. All right. So the monetary policy can be used to either increase. So so monetary policy may be in two forms. It could be expansionary, or it could be what? It could be what? Contractionary. It could be expansionary or contractionary. When we say monetary policy is expansionary, then what we are saying is that they are increasing, the central bank is interested in increasing the supply of money in the economy. All right. We'll later on see how the supply of money leads to a reduction in the interest rate. But more likely, because of the regime that we are using, more likely when they want to do expansionary monetary policy, what they do is that they announce a reduction in the policy interest rate. All right. They announce a reduction in the policy interest rate. That's how we are able to know that the central bank is interested in conducting what? An expansionary monetary policy. It's also called loosening. Contractionary monetary policy is just the reverse. We want to reduce the supply of money in the economy. So basically what happens is that the policy interest rate is what? Is increased. Okay. So monetary policy could be expansionary or contractionary, depending on what the objectives of the central bank is. So how do we determine the supply of money in the economy? It is determined by the banking system, directly controlled by the central bank through its monetary policy, and indirectly through the commercial banks, through the deposit creation process that we have demonstrated earlier on. Okay, so the central bank is the sole institution that is in control of the supply of money. Okay, and they do it through the conduct of this thing called monetary policy. Okay, so monetary policy is about altering the supply of money, either expansionary to increase it or contractionary to do what? To decrease it. Okay, so it's the central banks that are responsible for conducting monetary policy. In some countries, the central bank is independent of the central government in the conduct of monetary policy. So here too in Ghana, we have this operational independence of the Bank of Ghana. Okay, the Bank of Ghana is supposed to be operational independent. Okay, so recall that monetary policy refers to a change in the country's stock of money supply that seeks to do what? Stabilize the level of economic activity and price level. Okay, in most advanced countries, stable prices or inflation rates close to 2% and outputs as close as possible to full employment is what the main objective is when it comes to the conduct of monetary policy. In the case of Ghana, what we want is a very stable inflation rate, and then we put a peg around the inflation rate that should be plus or what? -2. Gideon.
Sir, please, my question is, what will cause the central bank to increase the supply of money and also maybe decrease the supply of money in an economy?
Yeah, very good question. But let's go forward a little bit. It will be answered for you. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Sir, please, if the central bank creates money, why can't the government just take the money from them when they are in need of the money? Instead, they go out borrowing. Okay. So Isabella, your question will also be answered. Very, very good question there. All right. Very, very, very good question there. And I think when we come to inflation, then we'll answer your question. You realize that printing of money can lead to an inflation. Okay, it will lead to inflation. So it's not just as simple as that. I mean, it's not as simple as that. It can lead to inflation. When inflation is high, real money balances deplete, and we'll answer that question. It's a very, very good question. Okay, so 2 marks for you. Is it Isabella? Yeah. Moses, yes, they do, Benny. Yeah, they do. Yeah. All right. So central banks have an array of instruments. Okay, so don't forget the conduct of monetary policy is just trying to alter the supply of money to affect certain economic activities. So the central bank has a lot of instruments at their disposal that they can use. Okay, they have a lot of instruments at their disposal. Some of these things are a little outdated, but more recently, you don't hear central banks talk about OMO and all those things. But these are the instruments that they have. They have open market operations, they have reserve required policy, and they have the discount rate policy. Okay, so we'll go through all these three. Okay, we'll go through these three instruments that is at the disposal. Okay, that is at the disposal of the central bank that they can use to control the supply of money. All right. So now let's talk about OMO. OMO is simply open market operations, the purchase and sale of government securities in the open market. Okay, so the open market here refers to dealers in government bonds and individuals and that kind of thing. All right, so here we are talking about government securities in the form of Treasury bills. Yes, a lot of people are patronizing Treasury bills now, and then various government bonds. Okay, so more or less government securities is what we deal with when we are trying to do open market operations. So this is basically how it operates. We so when government wants to alter the supply of money, all right. So for instance, open market purchases are meant to increase the supply of money. Don't forget, the central bank has its money. Now it comes and says that I'm selling a treasury bill, and the treasury bill has a certain interest rate, which can be redeemed in the future. So what it basically does is that if it sells the treasury bill to the public pay for the treasury bill in the form of money. So that when it sells the treasury bills, it reduces the supply of money in the economy. If it wants to increase the supply of money in the economy, it says, bring back my treasury bill and come and get back your money with interest. All right. So anytime the central bank buys treasury bills, when they sell treasury bills, they reduce the supply of money in the economy. But when they buy, okay, they increase the supply of money in the economy. Should I explain again? Or it's pretty straightforward?
Yes,
So please explain again.
All right. So here it goes. The central bank prints money, and it is holding government securities, for instance, a Treasury Bill. Now, if the central bank sells the Treasury Bill, so the Treasury Bill is just like a paper, all right? Just consider the Treasury Bill just like a paper, all right? But it is redeemable in the future with some interest rate. If the central bank sells the paper, what they do is they give you the paper and take money from you, all right? Take money from you. So anytime they sell the Treasury Bill or any of the government financial securities, they are reducing the amount of money in the system, all right? They are giving you this paper-based financial instrument and taking money from you. So that's how they reduce the supply of money in the system. Now, if they want to increase the supply of money, they say, okay, come and give me back my Treasury bills and take money. All right. So that is how. So they buy the instruments and give back in return money. All right, Wendy, go ahead.
Yes. Please, recently I heard something like the Bank of Ghana buying gold in like 60 years. Does that have to do with the amount of money in the system?
Come again. Your line is a little faint.
Hello, Steffi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. It's a little faint, but you speak. Oh, Wendy, are you there? You said you heard recently that BOG is buying gold.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Recently, I read the news where I heard the Bank of Ghana had bought gold in like over 60 years. And I want
Gold
to know
over 15 years.
Like that was the first time the Bank of Ghana had bought gold.
Okay.
Past. I want to know if that has to also do with the amount of money in the system.
I'm not very sure because I don't think that's an example of a government financial instrument. They probably want to just diversify, their resources and keep it in some form of an asset that could and yield a return some other time. Okay, I'm not very sure that was meant to increase the supply of money yes, I don't think that was the case. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I can see a lot of you ask a lot of questions about the Treasury Bill. Yes, anybody at all can buy a Treasury Bill. I think I've bought some before, but more recently I haven't bought some. Yeah, but I know a lot of people are patronizing it now. And the good thing about a Treasury Bill is that it is risk-free. The government cannot run away. The government will never ever run away. Even if the president leaves, another government will come, all right? So it kind of like is risk-free. And then it's a much safer option. It's more or less a safer option than to buy from, say, any other financial institution that the next day they can run away. Yeah. All right. So that's why a lot of people go into this Treasury Bill thing. But basically, that is how open market operations are used to alter the supply of money in the system. All right. To alter the supply of money in the system. Okay. So to see how OMO affects money supply, consider an open market purchase of government securities worth 100 million. Okay. The central bank issues the initial check worth 100 million, which can be drawn or cashed. Okay, I've described this already. But the most important thing to note is that the purchase of so the central bank issues an initial check worth 100 million cedis, which can be drawn as cash or deposits. Now, note that either of these actions will increase the supply of money. However, if the check is deposited in an account, the commercial bank can create, all right? So it's trying to tell you that, well, even though we learned from the deposit creation process how commercial banks can make money, the initial action is not yet the money creation process, but it's when the banks make additional loans and that kind of thing, okay, that they make. All right. Okay, yes, Linda Bosomafe.
Please,
Yes.
Is Treasury Bill the same as shares? Are they the
It's what?
same? Treasury Bill the same as shares?
Okay, so the Treasury bills usually refers to the government security. So shares can also be a financial security, but it could be issued by the bank or any commercial bank, all right? But we specifically refer to, so more like the Treasury is just central bank. A bill being sold by the Treasury, the central bank, okay? It's being operated by the central bank, but it is the commercial banks that do what? That do the sales, okay? In fact, the commercial banks, they have a way of doing it, okay? By share can be any other financial instrument issued by any other bank, not necessarily the central bank, okay? Not necessarily the central bank. All right. Okay. So this part is just trying to explain how, and I've explained that already. So let's not waste time on it. Now let's look at in Ghana, the Bank of Ghana's Monetary Policy Committee announces the direction of the monetary policy after its meeting. I've mentioned this already. In Ghana, we make reference to the monetary policy rate, whilst, for instance, in the US, they have the federal funds rate. Okay, in the US, they have this thing. So the central bank of US is what is called the federal bank. Okay, and then they have their own rate. But for Ghana, we use the monetary policy and the monetary policy rate, the prime rate actually. Okay, even though we basically call it the monetary policy rate. So open market activities are then carried out to meet the target. Okay, they are now carried out to meet the targets. Okay, so that's basically about how OMO operates. Okay, it's about government securities and treasury bills and that kind of thing. Now let's come to another way that the central bank alter the supply of money in the economy, and it is through this thing called discount rates. So don't forget, commercial banks can borrow from the central bank when they are short of what? Reserves, and it's part of the banking process. When the commercial banks are short of reserves, they can easily rely on they must rely on the central bank for what? Additional reserves. Okay. Now the interest rate that is charged on commercial banks borrowing from the central bank, okay, is what is called what? The discount rate. Okay, so the interest that the central bank charges the commercial bank on these reserves is what is called the discount rate. And the central bank can use this discount rate again to alter the supply of money. So when they increase the discount rate, so they can raise the discount rate to reduce the amount of money that the central and the commercial banks can borrow, or reduce that interest rate so that it will increase the amount of money that the and commercial banks can pick from the central bank. So this is pretty straightforward. It's not very difficult. If I'm central bank, Bank of Ghana, and I am you commercial bank, you come and take money from me, and I issue a rate on it. If I want you to have few money, I'll increase the rate. If I increase the rate, it means you have less reserves to be able to pick from me. If I reduce the rate, you get more money. It's very straightforward. Okay, it's very, very, very straightforward. It's not very difficult. Not very, very difficult to understand. Okay, all right. Then from the discount rate, then there is this thing called the reserve requirement. Okay, this one is not very difficult to understand. It says that for the purposes of prudent commercial banking, commercial banks are supposed to keep a fraction of their deposits as cash. Okay. So Isabella wants me to go over so the discount rate is just assuming, Isabella, assuming I am the central bank, okay, and you are a commercial bank. What I'm saying is this: me, the central bank, if you are coming to take some reserves from me, and I don't want you to have a lot of money on you, what me, the central bank, would do is just to increase this thing called the discount rate. So if the discount rate was 10%, and I increase it to say 20%, all right, the amount of money you, Isabella, will get from me will be small. Isabella, do you understand? All right, good. So that's how the discount rate works. So now let's come to this reserve reserve requirements. Okay, so banks are supposed to keep some of their a fraction of their deposits, or as a fraction of the reserves they have as deposits, others in the form of what? Cash. Part of these reserves are required by regulators. So the reserve required ratio is simply the fraction of deposits required by banks to keep as what? As reserves. Okay. So banks may, in addition to the required reserves, keep additional what? Excess reserves. Okay. So this is how we can rely on the required. So it's all about central bank saying that what you keep on you, the commercial bank, what you keep on you as your required reserve, increase the rate. All right. So if you increase the required reserve ratio, all right, it simply reduces the amount of loans that you have at your disposal to be able to use to do what? Do the money creation. For instance, when we looked at the deposit creation, if me, the central bank, forces you to increase what you keep as your reserve required, to increase, there's a little bit of a disruption from somebody. All right. So if I say what you keep as your reserve, increase it, it means that how much you have left that you can use to do loans, it reduces. And it's also straightforward. All right. Is Isabella there? Do you understand? A number. It's a good question you're asking. I've seen your question. It's interesting. All right. So basically that's how. So we could use reserve requirements. We could use discount ratio, the discount rate, or we can even use OMO to alter the supply of money. Okay, we can use all of those stuff to alter the supply of money. It's not very difficult. Now let's come to what we know best. All right, we've already spoken about the supply of money, and last Tuesday we again spoke about, yes, Ebenezer.
Sir, please, I want to ask the central bank, instead of using these three, that's the open market operation, the reserve requirement, and the discount rate, can the central bank give a direct order to the commercial bank to?
Of course. All of this, even moral suasion and all those things are there.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Okay, so recall that the demand for money is a transactions demand for money and an asset demand. So transactionary, to meet what you guys know as a transactionary demand for money, and then precautionary demand for money. And then the asset demand is what you guys know as what? The speculative demand for money. If we put all of this stuff together, they say that the demand for money is determined by a couple of variables. One of them is the real interest rate. The other one is the level of income. The other one is expected inflation rates. All right. So all of these factors can affect the demand for money. So the quantity of money demand falls when the interest rate does what? Rises. Okay. When interest rate rises, the demand for money falls. When interest rate rises, there's a higher incentive to allocate more wealth to interest-bearing assets and reduce money balances for consumption. All right. Okay. When interest rates are high, if interest rates are high, as any rational economic agent, what you do is to increase the amount of money that you can use to patronize those financial assets. So if treasury bills are going up, a rational economic agent will buy a lot of treasury bills. That's all we are saying. You buy a lot of treasury bills, and then the amount of money you hold on yourself for consumption and all those things, you reduce it. All right, that's very basic economics. Okay, that's very, very basic economics. Okay, so so this is where we want to go to. All right, we want to say that the demand for money should be negatively sloped like this to show that if interest rates go up, all right, if interest rates goes up, you reduce the amount of money that you do what? If interest rates go up, you reduce the amount of money that you hold for other purposes. All right, you hold for other purposes. But for the supply of money, we'll assume it to be fixed. Okay, we'll assume it to be what? To be fixed. Supply of money, we are assuming it to be what? To be fixed. Okay, the supply of money is assumed to be. So that's the straight line that you see here. Okay, it is this straight line that you see here. So in equilibrium, we can determine what the real interest rate is and what the real money balance is. Okay, in equilibrium, we can determine what the real interest rate is and what the real money balance is. Okay, all right. So don't forget, this is the money market. Our Y star will be what? M star. All right, the real money balance. Okay, all right, good. Okay, so now let's look at what happens if, for instance, there is an increase in money supply. So before we even go there, when there is an increase in money supply, okay, this curve, this straight line you see here shifts to the right to show that there's more. So it starts from 0, and the further you go to the right, there is what? An increase in money supply. All right. So if initially we're at M star and there's a reduction in money supply, this thing shifts what? To the left. Okay, is that clear? It shifts to the left. The same way, if there's an increase in the demand for money, this whole curve here shifts up. All right, so if there's an increase in the demand for money, we should expect the interest rate to do what? To go up. All right, we should expect the interest rate to go up. And if there's a reduction in the demand for money, we should expect the interest rate to do what? To drop. All right, I just want you to see these dynamics before we go and do the proper analysis. Okay, all right. So here, what we are saying is that there's a change in money supply that shifts. All right, so Louisa says I should go over again. I will surely do that. What I'm saying is this: if there's an increase in money supply, this vertical line shifts to the right. Can you see that, Louisa? And when there is a decrease in money supply, this vertical line shifts towards to the left. All right, so Louisa, unmute yourself and let's talk. What will happen to the interest rate, assuming money demand is fixed, but the money supply increases to the right? What will happen to the interest rate? Look at it again. If this one shifts to the left, assuming there's a left line here, what will happen to the interest rate?
If the supply shifts to the right,
yes,
the interest rate will fall.
Exactly. And what if there's a fall in the supply of money?
The interest rate will rise.
Exactly. Okay. Now, assuming the money supply is fixed and there's an increase in the demand for money, what will happen to the interest rate?
It will increase.
All right. And then when there's a decrease in the demand for money?
It will decrease.
Right. Do you understand?
Yes, please.
All right. Monica, let's go.
So please, I wanted to ask the MP. Is it because demand is perfectly inelastic or what?
No. It's because money is fixed.
Money is fixed.
Yes, it's fixed. The supply of money in the economy is fixed by a certain central bank. It's not because of inelasticity and all those things.
So,
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now let's move on. Okay, so here we have a situation where there is an increase in the money supply. Yes, Teresa.
Sir, please, can you do what you did with Louisa one more time, please?
So you will do it, right?
Yes, I'll do, because I didn't get it.
Okay, so I'm saying that if the demand for money is fixed, it's untouched, but there's an increase in money supply, what will happen to the interest rate?
She said it will decrease, but me, I was thinking it will increase.
Why will it increase? This vertical line is shifting to the right.
It will decrease.
Do you get it now? We are not moving on this line up. Good.
Okay.
Do you understand now?
Yes, please. So when it shifts, so we are using the curve.
Yes, the curve is fixed.
So okay. So if the MPU shifts to the right, and it will touch the curve at the down part, that means it will reduce. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. All right. So if there's an increase in money supply, we expect the interest rate to change. Okay, so a change in the real interest rates affects consumption and that kind of thing. All right, so this is basically it. If there is an increase in the supply of money, interest rates will reduce. If interest rates are reducing, investment. Okay, so this one didn't show any real direction. All right. So it's just there's no direction indicated here. All right, we'll come to a very specific one where some form of direction is indicating. But what is important for you to know that anytime there's a change in the supply of money, okay, we should expect the money supply curve to shift. If this money supply curve shifts, there will be a change in interest rate. The moment there's a change in interest rate, we should expect investment, consumption to respond. If any of these things respond, because they are in the aggregate demand equation, aggregate demand will do what? Will also change. And prices and all of those things will keep changing. All right, will keep changing. Let me see if there's a very specific example. All right, so here there's a very specific example that says that recently Monetary Policy Committee has reduced the monetary policy rate, okay, the monetary policy rate from 16% to what? 14.5%. All right. Other measures include the reduction in the primary reserve requirement from 10 to 8%. Now the question is, what is the overriding concern of the MPC that led to this decrease? What is the effect of these lending rates on, what is the effect on, what will be the effect of this decision on lending rates, investments, and what? Consumption? How would this boost aggregate demand? Okay, so let's see what will happen. Okay, so lowering the monetary policy rate increases money supply. Okay, so monetary policy rate, if the monetary policy rate is reduced, there is an increase in money supply. Okay, it increases money supply and decreases the real interest rates in the economy. All right, that's basically what happens when the central bank reports that there is a reduction in what? In the monetary policy rate. Okay, so the thing to note is that most policy rates, they move together. If the rates are going up, they are all more likely to be catching the cold and going up. If one is dropping, and the most important one is the policy rate. The moment the policy rate drops, we should expect all other interest rates to do what? To reduce. But look at what happens. If there is an increase in a decrease in real interest rates, all right, we already know, or even if you don't know, there is a negative relationship between interest rate and what? And investment. There's a negative relationship between what? Interest rate and investment. Interest rate is usually the cost of capital. So if the cost of capital goes up, as a businessman, you reduce how much you are investing, how much you are putting into your investments. Okay, and if it comes down, you increase your investments. Okay, so with lower real interest rate, which you expect investments to, or people are paid higher incomes, their consumption also does what? Increases. So if we are using the typical aggregate demand and aggregate supply framework, if investment goes, don't forget, investment and consumption are in what? The aggregate demand equation. So if all of this go up, we should expect what? Aggregate demand to do also what? To increase, shifting the curve to the right. So if we have a very simple Keynesian model, we should expect output to also increase, okay? We should expect output to also do what? We should expect output to also increase, okay? We should expect output to also increase. Here, we are trying to, okay, the Keynesian stuff was not drawn here. Oh, that's the end of the slide. Okay, so you can look at this in terms of the typical Keynesian cross, where we have the 45-degree line, and then we have the AD line. AD line will shift parallel upwards. Okay, the AD line will shift parallel upwards. Okay, now look at what will happen to, what will be the effect of a reduction of the interest rates, okay, on real money balances. Okay, a reduction in the interest rate. So take the reduction in the interest rates like a reduction in the discount rate. Okay, a reduction in the discount rate. Okay, so Emmanuel, I've seen your question. I will answer it. Just prompt me to answer it after this. So a reduction in the interest rate means that there will be more money with commercial banks. So typically what we are expecting, if their deposit creation works and there's no other assumptions, okay, that people will keep the money and not put it, we should expect that as there is a reduction in the policy rate, money supply should do what? Should increase. Okay, so even look at it this way. If we should move down, okay, initially we were here and then the monetary policy rate was reduced, we should expect that to restore equilibrium, the new equilibrium, the supply of money must do what? Must increase. And the supply of money increasing is not just from the action of the central bank, it can also come from the actions of what? Of the commercial banks, all right? It can also come from the actions of the commercial banks, all right? Yes, Emmanuel, your question about, so the difference between anytime you see real and nominal, always know that the real has been adjusted for inflation, okay? So nominal money supply would have been just MS, but because we are interested in real economists, we are always interested in real values and not nominal, all right? Because the normal tend to give a very different picture. So anytime the real has, and the nominal has been adjusted for inflation, then it becomes what? Real. Okay, then it becomes real. So we can have a real interest rate. Okay, there's something called the Fisher equation. We can rely on the Fisher equation to convert the nominal interest rate into what? Into a real interest rate. Okay, all right. So anytime you hear real, it means it has been adjusted for inflation. It has been adjusted for inflation. Okay, is that clear? All right. Any question on what we have done so far? Okay, we are basically done. I mean, that's the end of the class actually. But let me take one or two questions from you, and then yes, Justice, you can unmute and ask your question.
So please, can you make available
Sure.
the slides?
I'll send it. I'll tell Dr. Patrick Esini to upload it. All the same, I'll send it to Georgina to circulate it amongst you. Right?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. Matilda.
Sir, please, could you go over the last diagram again?
All right. So what I'm saying is that there is a reduction in the real and monetary policy rate. Okay. We should expect other interest rates to drop. All right. Interest rates to drop. So it should lead to, if the interest rate drops, there should be an increase in what? Money supply for equilibrium to be what? Restored. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then somebody was asking, so now, so somebody, and the teaching assistant has gotten in touch with, I'm told the teaching assistant has agreed with you on a specific time you'll be having your tutorials. I wanted to do it myself, but they got a teaching assistant to assist with that. All right. So let me hear from you how the tutorial is going, and then I'll also see how I can also plan and come in. All right. Yes.
Sir, please, what you explained, I want to be clear. Does that mean the interest rate?
Exactly. No, it is inversely related to investment.
But not consumption.
Consumption comes in when, of course, if your income can be consumed or saved, all right? If your income can be consumed or saved, and there's an increase in interest rate, what you do is, as a rational person, you increase the proportion of your funds that you have, the proportion of your funds that you use for savings, you increase it. So there is a relationship between the interest rate and consumption, but it's not functional like you want me to say.
Okay, so it is between the interest rate and then the investment.
Exactly.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other question before we round up? Yes, Justice.
Hello, sir. Please, how about if the interest rate increases, there will be increase in savings, which will increase capital formation.
And how is consumption affected? Yes, Justice. How is consumption affected in that case? There's a reduction in consumption, right? Because you are increasing capital formation. Okay. Okay. Justice, are you there? Okay, maybe Justice is struggling to speak. And Teresa, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Please. I heard you saying that when the interest rate increases, the money supply must also increase to attain equilibrium.
No, interest rate was reducing.
So when the interest rate reduces, the money supply must increase.
Exactly.
To attain equilibrium.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Martha.
Please, in the slides, I saw that you said an increase in money supply reduces real interest rate, and it increases investment and consumption. So does it mean the statement in the slides is wrong?
It's not wrong. It's correct. You can look at it. Look at what happens if money supply shifts from the black line to the blue line. What happens to interest rate? It reduces, right?
Yeah.
And then if there's a reduction in interest rate, what happens to investment? Okay. A reduction in interest rate leads to an increase in investments, right? Martha, do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. Okay. Any more questions before we wrap up? Any last question before we wrap up?
Sir, please, any updates on the IE?
Okay, I don't have any update yet. So hopefully by next week we should get an update. I'll give you an update hopefully by next week. I think so. All right. Okay, so if there's no more question, I think we can end here.
Sir, please, one last question.
Yes, Matilda, yes.
Sir, please, Sister Rita.
Okay, go ahead.
Please, how did you explain the real interest rates and the nominal interest rate?
Oh, I said that it got to do with inflation. The nominal interest, the real interest rate is when you adjust the nominal for inflation. So typically, it is just they have a certain Fisher equation that you can use to convert the nominal interest rate into a real interest rate. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
Please, in these cases, investment not like a situation where you pay money like Treasury Bill.
No, it's you doing putting some capital, coming up with something productive, an output, not investing in financial assets. Okay, I get you now. Not investing in financial assets, so that's not the type of investment you are talking about.
Okay. So what is it then?
So bringing capital and labor together to produce an output.
Okay.
That's the type of investment we are referring to.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I was meant to ask the difference between savings.
The difference between what?
Savings and investment. Then, but you've explained the investment to us right now.
Okay. So yeah. Oh, now I understand you. It's not investment into a financial asset. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Yes. Who is speaking? Yes, who is speaking? So I mean, you guys can, those others can log off. We are done with the class.
Maybe you said me. I didn't get it.
Please.
You didn't get what?
Where is it with the curve?
Nancy, off your camera.
Which curve?
Which curve?
The last line. The last line.
Okay, don't worry. We'll come back next week before we start. I'll take it. I will explain it once more for you. All right. Let me share the slides.
Yeah, I
with
have
you.
a question.
Yes. What's your question?
Hello, sir.
Please,
One after the other.
money supply is increasing,
Uh-huh.
and consumption and investment is also increasing. Doesn't mean aggregate demand will also increase.
Of course.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
When you explained the investment, I didn't hear. Could you please go over again?
What is the question?
The investment, you said, is not investing into financial assets.
No, that's not the type of investment.
So you give the explanation for it. So
we want output. We want hard good to eat. So we are talking about output. I mean, like a good. I mean, putting something together and coming and getting a chocolate out of it. That's the type of thing you are referring to.
Okay. So something like manufacturing.
Exactly, manufacturing related.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
All right. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Someone
Yeah,
said
Monica.
that an increase in money supply is going to lead to an increase in aggregate demand. And I'm saying that is it likely to affect consumption and investment?
Exactly.
And I'm saying
because
it because
consumption.
they are all components of aggregate demand.
Exactly. That's correct.
Thank you. Please, my name is Norman.
Okay. Hi, Monica. Bye. Okay, so bye. We'll meet next week Tuesday, right? Bye.
I said take care.
Thank you very much, sir.